Check this out, BCM right here, bringing you another Commander deck tech. And today, we have another subscriber submission from none other than Power of the Herd. We have another very fun one with Tex-Ketramose, the New Dawn. This is going to primarily focus on exiling everything, either from the battlefield or the graveyard, to draw cards, gain life, and basically take over the game by creating a whole bunch of synergy with putting things into exile. Tex-Ketramose, the New Dawn himself, he's a 4/4 with Menace, Lifelink, and is indestructible. And he can't attack or block unless there's 7 or more cards in exile. This is not going to be very difficult to do. And whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from graveyards or the battlefield, we draw a card and we lose a life. So let's get right into this. First up are all the horse creatures. So we have Kelith, Sunmane Familiar. This is a 2-cost 1/1. Whenever a commander we control attacks, we get to put a +1 counter on it. Now we have Armored Warhorse. This is just a very efficient low-cost creature for 2 mana. Now we have Diamond Mare. When it enters the battlefield, we get to choose a color, either black or white. And whenever we cast a spell of the chosen color, we get to gain a life. Now we have a fun one. We have Caustic Bronco. This has saddle, so it's kind of like a vehicle, but with saddle 3, we can tap any number of creatures we control with total power of 3, and the mount will become saddled. When Caustic Bronco attacks, we get to reveal the top card of our library and put it into our hand, and we lose life equal to that card's mana value if it isn't saddled. If it is saddled, each opponent will lose that life instead. Now we have Brightmare. When it enters the battlefield, we get to tap a target creature, and then we gain life equal to that creature's power. Now we have Shieldmare. This is a 2/3 that can't be blocked by red creatures, and when it enters the battlefield or becomes the target of a spell or ability a opponent controls, we get to gain 3 life. Now we have the other one. We have Plaguemare. This can't be blocked by white creatures, and when it enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control will get -1/-1. Now we have Underworld Charger. This creature can't block, but it does have escape. So we can exile cards from our graveyard to return it back to the battlefield. If it escapes, it'll enter the battlefield with 2 +1 counters on it. Now we have Tex-Ketramose Charger. This has escape as well, but we have to exile 5 cards. But whenever Tex-Ketramose Charger escapes, we get a choice of either a +1 counter or flying. Now we have Thurid, Mare of Destiny. This is a 2/4 with flying and lifelink, and whenever we cast a Pegasus, Unicorn, or Horse spell, we get to make a token copy of that creature spell. And he's also a creature lord, so other horses, unicorns, or Pegasi will get +1/+1. Now we have good old Bill the Pony. This one's very fun. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to create 2 food tokens, and we can sacrifice food tokens, and if we did, until end of turn, target creature will assign its damage as its toughness rather than its power. Now we have Phyrexian Warhorse. This has kicker, so for 5 mana, when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, we're going to create a 1/1 white soldier token. Or we can pay 1 to sacrifice any other creature. That way, Phyrexian Warhorse will get +2/+1. Now we have good old Loyal Unicorn. This is a 3/4 with Vigilance. It also has Lieutenant. So at the beginning of combat on our turn, if we control our commander, we're going to prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to every single creature we control. And then other creatures we control will gain Vigilance. Now we have Brightfield Mustang. This has saddle as well. Saddle 1 is probably the most efficient saddle mechanic because of how low cost it is. But whenever this creature attacks, if it's saddled, we get to untap it and put a +1 counter on it. Now we have Chrome Steed. This has Metalcraft, so it'll get +2/+2 as long as we control 3 or more artifacts. Now we have Dust Charger. This has Ascend, so if we control 10 or more permanents, we get the City's Blessing. And as long as we have the City's Blessing, Dust Charger is going to get +2/+2. Now we have a very good one. We have Crested Sunmare. Other horses are going to be indestructible, so they're going to stick around for quite some time. And every single end step, if we gain life, we're going to create a 5/5 horse token. Now we have a newer one. We have Guardian Sunmare. This is Saddle 4. It's also a 5/5 with Ward 2. So our opponents will have to pay 2 colorless mana just to target this. And whenever this creature attacks while it's saddled, we get to search our library for a non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less and put it on the battlefield. Now we have some non-horse creatures that are really going to help us out. So we have Metallic Mimic. This is technically a horse, but it's also a hippo, a dragon. It's whatever you want it to be. As it enters the battlefield, we get to choose a creature type. It's going to be horse, of course. Metallic Mimic will become the chosen type, and each other creature we control of the chosen type will enter with an additional +1 counter on it. Okay, now we have 4 Nazguls. A deck can have up to 9 Nazguls. This is probably the most flavorful creature that rides horses. These are 1/2s with Death Touch, and when it enters the battlefield, the ring will tempt us. And whenever the ring tempts us, we're going to put a +1 counter on each Wraith we control. Now we have Fiend Hunter. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to exile another target creature until Fiend Hunter leaves the battlefield. Similar to that, we also have Banisher Priest. Now we have Gix, Yawgmoth Praetor. This one's going to be very good for us because whenever any creature we control deals combat damage to our opponents, we can pay 1 life, and if we do, we get to draw a card. Or we can pay 7 and then discard X cards and exile the top X cards of target opponent's library. And we can play lands and cast spells among all these cards exiled this way. This is going to be a very good way after drawing all these cards just to discard them and get even more things into exile for Ketramose. Now we have Giza, Glorious Resurrector. This has a static effect. Whenever any creature a opponent controls would be put into a graveyard, we're going to exile that creature instead. And every single upkeep, we get to put all creature cards exiled with Giza on the battlefield under our control, which have decayed. We do have 2 planeswalkers that are going to help us out. So we have Kaya, Geist Hunter. This is going to enter with 3 loyalty counters on her, and if we +1 her, creatures we control will gain Death Touch, and we get to put a +1 counter on 1 target token we control. We can also -2 her, and until end of turn, if 1 or more tokens would be created, we're going to create twice that amount instead. Or -6, we get to exile all cards from all graveyards, and then put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card that was exiled this way. Now we have a very good one. We have Elspeth Stormslayer. This has a static effect. Whenever 1 or more tokens would be created, we're going to create twice that many instead. She'll enter with 5 loyalty. Then we can +1 her to create a 1/1 white soldier token. Or -0, we can put a +1 counter on each creature we control, and they'll gain flying until the end of turn. Or -3, we can destroy target creature a opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. Okay, let's get into the artifacts. We got some mana rocks, so we have our Chrome Mox. Chrome Mox is going to be better than Sol Ring in this particular build because we want to exile things. Now we have Soul Guide Lantern. That way we can exile cards from our opponent's graveyard. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to exile a target card from any graveyard, or we can sacrifice it to exile each opponent's graveyard, or we can pay 1, sacrifice it to draw a card. Now we have a very good one. we have Ghost Vacuum. I love this card. We can tap it just to exile a card from any graveyard, or pay 6. We can sacrifice it, and for each creature card that was exiled with Ghost Vacuum, we're going to put that card under our control, and they will be a 1/1 spirit in addition to its other types. Now we have Stone of Eric. This has the static effect. Whenever a creature a opponent controls would be put into a graveyard, it gets exiled instead, which is going to be very beneficial for us. Or we can just pay 2, sacrifice it to exile target player's graveyard, then we draw a card. And because we're going to be drawing lots of cards, we have Thought Vessel. That way we have no maximum hand size. Of course, we have Arcane Signet. Now we have a couple different vehicles. The best one I feel is Unlicensed Hearse, because we're going to use this just to activate it and exile cards from our opponent's graveyard. And when we crew Unlicensed Hearse, its power and toughness will be equal to the number of cards we exiled. We have our Commander Sphere. That way we can just sacrifice it to draw a card if we really need to. Now we have Whip of Erebos. This is going to be very good for us when we're creating all these horse tokens, because every single creature we control will have a lifelink. So we're going to be gaining lots of life. But we have the activated ability where we can return any creature from our graveyard back to the battlefield. It'll gain haste. But if it would leave the battlefield, it's going to get exiled anyway. Okay, now we have some artifacts that are really going to power up all the creatures that we have. So we have Banner of Kinship. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type. Then we're going to put a fellowship counter on Banner of Kinship for each creature we control of that type. We're going to choose horses, of course. And creatures of the chosen type will get +1/+1 for each fellowship counter on Banner of Kinship. Now we have Obelisk of Erd. This does cost 6 mana, but it has Convoke, so we can tap creatures to reduce this cost. But when it enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type. We're going to choose horse. And creatures of the chosen type will get +2/+2. Okay, let's get into the enchantments. All these enchantments are going to help by making our creatures better or just straight up exiling things. So we have Authority of the Consuls. This is going to really lock down our opponents, especially if our opponent's creatures have haste. They're going to enter the battlefield tapped, and whenever any creature a opponent controls enters the battlefield, we get to gain a life. And just to ensure everything goes into exile, we have Rest in Peace. We're not focused on our stuff going to the graveyard. When Rest in Peace enters the battlefield, we're going to exile all cards from all graveyards. And if a card or token would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, it's going to get exiled. Now we have Cover of Darkness. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type. And that chosen creature type will have Fear. So the creatures are going to be very difficult for our opponents to block, because they're only going to be able to be blocked by artifact creatures or black creatures. Now we have Sheltered by Ghosts. We're going to enchant a creature we control, and when Sheltered by Ghosts enters the battlefield, we're going to exile target non-land permanent, but the enchanted creature will get +1/+0, lifelink, and ward 2. We're going to use all these to make Ketramose end the game very quickly. Now we have Felidar Umbra. The enchanted creature will have lifelink, or we can pay a colorless and a white, and we can attach Felidar Umbra to any other creature we control. So we can move this around if we really need to. It also has Totem Armor, so if the enchanted creature would be destroyed, we get to remove all damage from it. Felidar Umbra will be destroyed instead of the creature. Now we have Banishing Light. This is similar to the original Oblivion Ring. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to exile target non-land permanent until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. Similar to that, we have Trapped in the Screen. This is the same effect, except it has ward 2. And this can only target a artifact, creature, or enchantment. Now we have Stormplane Detainment. This is very similar to Banishing Light. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to exile target non-land permanent a opponent controls until Stormplane Detainment leaves the battlefield. We do have a lot of these kind of effects because we're just trying to put stuff into exile. Now we have Chains of Custody. We're going to enchant a creature we control. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to exile target non-land permanent a opponent controls until Chains of Custody leaves the battlefield. And the enchanted creature will have Ward 2. We also have Cast Out. This one's really fun because it has Flash. So we can cast this as an instant. We're going to exile target non-land permanent until Cast Out leaves the battlefield. Or we can cycle it just to draw a card. Now we have Etchings of the Chosen. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type will get +1/+1. We can also pay one, sacrifice a creature of the chosen type, and then target creature we control will gain indestructible until the end of turn. Just to keep our creatures even more protected, we have Indestructibility. The enchanted permanent will have Indestructible. So it doesn't have to be a creature. It can be whatever permanent we want. And to make our creatures even bigger all the time, we have Carthar's Crusade. Whenever any creature enters the battlefield under our control, we're going to put a +1 counter on each creature we control. Okay, let's get into the instance. We have our Vampiric Tutor. That way we can go get whatever card we need. It'll go on top of our library and we lose 2 life. Okay, now we have a very unique one. We have Surgical Extraction. I know it seems really strange to be running a card that will exile multiple copies of a card in the deck, but Surgical Extraction is going to provide a very unique purpose in this build because certain commander builds have cards that you can play multiple copies of. For example, Nazgul or Heir Apparent, stuff like that. And this will actually give you a hedge against those kind of builds that are running multiple cards that state you can run multiple copies. And that's why Surgical Extraction is here. And the whole point is to exile these cards. Now we have Ephemerate. This is going to allow us to blink out a creature if it has a very powerful enter the battlefield trigger. And this is going to allow us to do it that turn and the next turn. Of course, we have exile removal with Swords of the Plowshares, Path to Exile. Now, we need some protection for ourselves, so we have Flawless Maneuver. All our creatures will gain indestructible until the end of turn. And if we control our commander, we can cast Flawless Maneuver without paying its mana cost. Now we have a fun one. We have Calamity's Wake. We're going to exile all graveyards, and players can't cast non-creature spells that turn. Then we exile Calamity's Wake. Okay, now we have a fun one. We have Rescue from the Underworld. This does have an additional cost of sacrificing a creature, but we're going to return a creature card from our graveyard and the sacrifice creature back to the battlefield. Then we exile Rescue from the Underworld. Okay, let's get into the sorceries. We have our Imperial Seal. We can search for any card and put that card on top of our library, and we lose 2 life. Of course, we have Demonic Tutor, so we can go get whatever card we need. Day of Judgment. That way we can destroy all creatures. And if we just need to exile everything, we have Farewell. We can choose to exile all artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or graveyards. Okay, let's get into the land base. This is a very straightforward land base. So we have our command tower, our marsh flats. So we can go get whatever plains or swamp card we need. We have Fabled Passage to go get whatever basic we need. Now we have the lands to go get. So we have Gotha Shrine, Shadowy Backstreet. This has Surveil when it enters, so we can look at the top card. If we want to leave that card back on top, we can. Or we can put it into our graveyard. We have Sunlit Marsh. This will tap for both colors. It'll enter tapped, but we can go search for it. Now we have Vault of Champions as our Battle Bond land. Bleachbone Verge. I really like these Verges now. I think they're slightly better than the filter lands. Now we have our filter land with Fetid Heath. I only really like filter lands in 2-color decks. Now we have Shattered Sanctum. This is what's called a slow land. It'll enter tapped in the first 3 turns. Now we have our speed land with Concealed Courtyard. The first 3 turns, this will enter untapped. Now we have a fun one. We have Restless Fortress. This has a activated ability for 4 mana. Restless Fortress is going to become a 1/4 black and white nightmare. And whenever Restless Fortress attacks, defending player will lose 2 life and we gain 2 life. Now we have Caves of Coilus as our ping land. Now we have Silent Clearing. That way we can sacrifice it if we need to draw a card. We have our Bright Climb Pathway. We can choose to play this on the white side or the black side, depending on which color we need. Now we have Castle Ardenvale. We're going to use this to create tokens if we really need to. Now we have Castle Lochthwain. We're going to use this to draw cards just by paying life. We're going to be gaining a lot of life, so we're going to offset that. Now we have Takenuma, the Abandoned Mire. This one's going to be fun because we're going to channel it. We're going to mill 3 cards. Then we get to return a creature or planeswalker from our graveyard back to our hand. And this ability costs 1 colorless less for each legendary creature we control. And when we just need to exile any graveyard, we have Bojuka Bog. Now we have Hive of the Eye Tyrant. This one's going to be very beneficial because we're going to activate it. It'll become a 3/3 black beholder creature with menace, so it's already hard to block. And whenever that creature attacks, we're going to exile a card from that player's graveyard. Now we have Cavern Souls. This is going to ensure that all our horse creatures can't be countered. And just to keep killing stuff, we have Vault of the Archangel. We're going to activate this, and all our creatures are going to gain lifelink and death touch until the end of turn. We have 6 plains and 6 swamps. And that was the Commander deck tech for Ketramose the New Dawn. I really want to thank Power of the Herd for allowing me to showcase another one of his very fun horse builds. All these decks are horse themed and they're very fun. I want to hear from you guys. If you guys have any suggestions for this kind of strategy of exiling things, it is very similar to Prosper, but in black-white, I think it's a little bit better. But let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share these videos, and I'll see you in the next one.